Welcome to the Chicago Bar Association's 2023 Women's History Month program. The Chicago Bar Association welcomes you. My name is Greta Weathersby. I'm a senior corporate counsel for WEC Energy Group. I'm a member of the CBA's Diversity, Inclusion, Culture, Equity, and Engagement Committee, and also co-chair of the Chicago Bar Foundation's JEDI Committee. We hope you will visit the websites and learn more about these committees. Here at the CBA, we like to highlight women who are leading, achieving, and giving back to the legal community. Each leader gives in her own unique way and continues to make history. Sometimes the work may be considered groundbreaking, disruptive, or may mean providing steady, consistent, ethical representation, but all efforts matter. We are proud here at the CBA to have initiated and continue the Women's Archives Project that was spearheaded by CBA's Treasurer Nina Fain. And under this project, we've had the opportunity to interview Illinois Supreme Court justices, appellate court and circuit court judges, bar leaders, federal judges, corporate leaders, and practicing attorneys. Women's rights, achievements, and successes should be celebrated. So in addition to wearing purple this month, we hope that you will choose to advocate on an issue of importance to you, which may involve communicating with your elected officials, providing legal representation in a pro bono event, or just otherwise volunteering. We hope that you will be inspired by our interview today and that you will remember a woman, and especially a woman lawyer, who has helped you to recognize your value. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Greta Weathersby. I'm a senior counsel for WEC Energy Group. I'm also a member of the Chicago Bar Association's DICE Committee and the Chicago Bar Foundation's JEDI Committee. I am honored and humbled to interview Dean Michèle Alexandre for the CBA's Women's Archive Project during the 2023 Women's History Month. Welcome, Dean Alexandre. I'm so proud to introduce you to the Chicago Bar Association's legal community.
Thank you, Greta. It's my pleasure. So wonderful to talk to you, and so just eager to talk to our fellow Chicagoans.
Thank you. What I'd first like to do for our listening and viewing audience is provide a few notes on Dean Alexandre's background before we get into our conversational interview. But I am going to invite you to look at the Chicago Bar Association's website or Loyola University's website for more information. First, Michèle Alexandre is the current dean of Loyola University Chicago School of Law. She was appointed in 2022 after a nationwide search. In full disclosure to our audience, I am a proud Loyola alum, and I'm duly honored to have you here as a Loyola alum and a member of the CBA. So thank you so much.
Yay.
The next thing I want to say is Dean Alexandre represents excellence on all fronts. She is a graduate of the Harvard Law School. Dean Alexandre has also previously served as a dean at the Stetson University College of Law, where she spearheaded a number of programs with respect to scholarship, capital improvement, but most importantly, she has a record of having improved the bar passage rate for the first-time takers of the Florida bar, and that rate was improved and vested since 2026. And we know as lawyers, passing the bar is the first step to success. Secondly, Dean Alexandre has held a number of other professional teaching roles and other roles at prestigious law schools throughout the nation. Dean Alexandre is a litigator. She has litigated historic discrimination cases. And finally, she's authored numerous textbooks. When I began, I said she is excellent on all fronts. Now, in her current role as the Dean of Loyola University, she oversees the law programs, the JD, the Master of Laws, the Master of the weekend program, the JD weekend program. There are graduate programs, online programs that altogether the student body is combined of close to 1,000 students. So, with that background, I'd like to now say again, welcome, and let's get right to it in terms of having the dean speak. I've talked enough. So, let's talk a little bit about career choice.
Uh-huh.
So, as you know, thousands of lawyers in Chicago. Tell us, a little bit about your choice in going into law. Did any one person inspire you? Let's hear a little bit about that.
Um, this is a great question. I've pondered it many times. I think what called me to law is this Jesuit type of calling that I've had all my life, which was a call to serve. I've written about growing up in Haiti and then moving to Brooklyn and seeing consistent patterns of inequity, even though those are two separate places. And over time during my childhood, it seemed that there was something in me that said, I want to help to change this. So in Haiti, it was about gender issues a lot, right? There was a lot of racial and economic inequity, but gender was kind of this poignant realization I had as a child that we were not protected in our bodies when society viewed us as different or non-conforming or just as a woman. So in Brooklyn, that continued, but I was in a public school system, so I got to see a range of how across the spectrum, we had commonalities in different groups and among different groups. Folks that were at my high school came from all over from the United States, but all over the world, and there were these
Hmm.
commonalities regarding poverty and
Hmm.
racial inequity, etc. So by the
Hmm.
time I got to college, I had these great teachers and great teachers in high school that just kept feeding me information about society that made me, I think, right for law school. So it was just a mentor's dream to just mold me. So they got me in front of classrooms to teach. They had me think about great questions from Leviathan, Thomas Hobbes to Aristotle. So they like fed these stacks. Plato's dialogues that had me grapple with how society should be. And then when it was time to decide, law school just was the only choice I could make. That's how it felt. I didn't know much about law school except that I know a couple of people had gone before me. But I really was attracted to getting a doctorate in English and literature because I loved it. But law school just felt like the only choice. So, and I've never regretted it, Greta. That's the thing. Like it has felt like the best degree for not only me, but for people who want to kind of serve law and society and intersecting issues.
Thank you for that. And that's the first time that I've heard how, just getting that exposure to those great thinkers, just inspired, that thought process of how can we do better. So thank you for that. Very, very informative. And it kind of leads me to my next question, because as I said when we got started, I participate with the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion committees across the Bar Association, and as you know, involved with Loyola. And as a Loyola alum, I'm able to identify with the school's mission. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And over the last like 6 to 7 years, even longer, I don't want to date myself, I've had a chance to work with the prior deans, the interim dean, Zelda Harris, the prior dean, Dean Kaufman, and others who were instrumental in kind of formulating the mission statement that you came in under. And for our group here, I want to just kind of read it out because it's a powerful statement. And then I just want you to discuss that if you can tell us more about it. And this is what Loyola says. It says, we are here to prepare graduates who will be ethical advocates for justice and equity, who will lead efforts to dismantle the legal, economic, political, and social structures that generate and sustain racism and all forms of oppression, and who will advance a rule of law that promotes social justice. Let's talk.
Yeah, it's humbling to come to a community that has done that level of work and a community that has thought about these issues with that depth. And I can tell you, Greta, and I don't know if we talked about it, that when I met this community as a candidate, that's what blew me over. I was blown away by how deeply people were wrestling. People assume that just because you're committed to the same cause, that it's not hard.
Right.
But
Right.
we know, right? And I think as we grow older, we all understand better that everybody's different. Everybody thinks differently. So to have form a community where difference of thoughts, of approaches, being yourself, can also meet this common mission, and that is fleshed out. That is the first inspiring thing about being at the law school, and I know you know that firsthand. Um, and then to talk to really look at the mission, I think about our job as legal element, right? Legal tools and shape and crafters of society. Without lawyers, the world is not a world. We go back to just our primitive
Yeah.
selves.
Yeah.
So lawyers are fundamental to society, and I think all law schools really understand that, and they take that seriously. I don't know if you know that at some point over the last 4 years, we all got together, most of the deans, and penned a rule of law letter because we were concerned about some of the things we were seeing. So we take that seriously. What is different at Loyola Law is that it's always been an innovator and a deep thinker as an institution, and it's led in curricular innovations like the weekend program, like our clinics and our child law program, health law. So we are known for that. So with this mission statement, we are leading in terms of the role of lawyers and fleshing out what it means to prepare ethical advocates, because we are not going to be on the same side. But if you look at every bar association and every state that defines the ethical responsibility of lawyers, they will say that no matter what side you are on, you have the duty to represent ethically and justly and fairly. That means even if you disagree with the other side, there has to be a common justice path.
Mhm.
Um, and so that justice is not subjective, right? It is kind of something that has to be ironed out. So that first one, and then the dismantling of systems, right?
Mhm.
We lawyers are interrogating law and asking it constantly, what ought we to be at this stage? We understand where we came from. We don't
Right. Right.
always know at the time that we need to be better, but we've evolved. So, what is our next step? What should the justice system be? And how does it represent everyone fully?
Mhm.
And I think that mission statement is really asking that and committing to doing it so that we're not passive agents of law. We are actively forming law in society. So the example I would give is that if you think from Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement, from the inception of the American Constitution, right, to Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement, you have 3 periods where society looks absolutely different, right?
Yes.
Complete change. And
Yes.
you cannot do that without law, without being willing to dismantle systems of oppression and then providing an alternative. It's not about just the dismantling. It's about the rigorous analysis and the care for rule of law that is also in our mission,
Yeah.
that then leads to saying, this system has such deep flaws. This is how we can inject and correct these flaws to keep ourselves whole and create a new union, which is something that gives a lot of hope about the American justice system, that it has been able to do that. And that's why I think we so vigorously at Loyola Law crafted this mission statement to call for us to always respond to that higher self and that higher calling.
Well, I can tell you, I'm getting chills because I feel like, okay, I've just been taken to school by our dean, by our Harvard law grad, and you laid it out from, the Constitution until now. And these are issues. So now let's talk a little bit about, in terms of with the mission, you mentioned some of the clinics. What are some of the things that Loyola you feel is doing that's also bringing the mission more concretely to life with some of the students? You mentioned a couple of clinics, but I wanted you to talk more about some of the clinics and things that are going on at the school.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you, and very generous. We are our aim is to serve this mission comprehensively. So, from our business law clinic For example, that we manifest the mission by constantly injecting resources and bringing students with us in experiential opportunities to serve small businesses in Chicago, to really think about the ways in which the needs of from the medium-sized businesses to small businesses and to the immersion issues facing businesses and localities in Chicago, how we can serve them. And we're doing this to a pretty comprehensive clinic offering right now, as well as our faculty who are bringing experts in the community. So we have two symposia happening very soon at the law school. And one of them is to educate about kind of the market and invest in the justice equality issues along that come with investing and some of the flaws in the market, which is such an important component
Yes.
of training, right? Not everybody's
Yes.
going to go into an SEC and investment or banking, but we know today that if some of us don't go into that, right, the inequities of kind of who gets the relief and who doesn't, whether it's the individuals who can't pay their mortgage or the folks with more ability. So that's so important. Other clinics, and you've heard probably the child law clinic is comprehensive. It's the Civitas Center, the Center for the Rights of the Child. And the Civitas Center has so many components, and I'll just name a few. We have an educational law policy that really promulgates policy and studies issues in the K-12 setting, but they also take students with them to serve children in the school system. We have a child law clinic that is litigating issues with students actively, serving families and children's rights in the court system. We have a juvenile portion of the child rights clinic that fights to give rights to and protect against juvenile detention, and that's issued policy papers that has served relevant areas of Chicago. We have a human rights a clinic in the human rights of the child that goes to the border and protects migrants and we thankful that many in our community have helped us support that work. And we have so many other portions of our clinic where there's a criminal law practicum that trains our students to do this. So we have evolved into kind of these full comprehensive and elaborate and detailed provision of services. And I would just kind of like name another, just to give you an idea. We have the Rodin Center for Social Justice, where students from the Rodin Center work with local organization on issues including rehabilitation of inmates, et cetera, on issues affecting local communities and citizens in the communities. And through that process, they really get trained in social justice work so that they could devote their career to these areas. We have a legal medical partnership that marries with the medical school, and where law students learn to provide, both social, medical, and legal services to people coming to people in the community. And we publish a report where hundreds of people either are referred to where they need to get services or are served for the medical legal partnership, so that each of the expertise that are brought to the table, including social work, legal, and medical, can serve the whole of the individual and not just one aspect. And I can go on. You have asked a dean the question that can get them to talk forever about.
Yes. Well, I can say to you that it sounds like your hands are full. Loyola has a comprehensive curriculum. It's bringing the mission statement to life with everything that's going on in the banking industry as we speak. We know that those issues are important to not only high net worth individuals, but people that are being affected. And so that gets to the social side. So thank you for that. So I'm going to turn away from Loyola just a little bit and let the audience get to know a little bit more about yourself And so, what I'd like for you to do, if you don't mind, if you could share something, unique about yourself that perhaps people won't find in the written bios when they go online. And sometimes what we find is that people sing or they act, or there's something they do that's really special that identifies them. They might be a chef, and so I just, in getting to know and introduce you more to our CBA legal community, is there anything you would like to share that you feel is unique?
I don't know about unique. That's a tall order, but
Okay, well,
but I'll tell you that I'm just a curious person. So I've picked up interest over the years, and so for many years I've trained capoeira, which is Brazilian martial arts, and I've gone to
oh,
Brazil for months to like
that's
submit
very
myself.
unique.
so to submit myself to the teaching of like the original capoeira, which is a capoeira Angola. And that's when
Okay.
the enslaved people in Brazil, particularly in Bahia, where the majority of the Black population is, where they use, it looked like dancing, but it was dance math, martial arts mask as dance.
Oh,
And I to learn how to do that. And it's a martial arts that like requires a lot of trickery and being low on the ground. And
hmm,
I was passionate about it because it connected so much to my heritage, coming from Haiti, and my connection, my love of learning everything about our journey as Black people coming from Africa to the Americas. And
yeah.
and what I found studying these things is that no matter where I go, um, we have that in common. There's a vestige, there's a remnants of our journey from Africa, stopping, in the
Brazil.
United States, going to the Caribbean, etc. Everybody knows because somehow, runners always talk about running because we got to
Right,
fit in the run, I guess.
right.
Everybody knows that I try to. Well, I'm a runner. I've been a
Okay.
runner for
Okay.
30
No, but I
years.
didn't know. So thank you for that. So you're a runner and this special martial
Yeah,
arts.
and that's what I picked up over the years. It made me very happy. It made me connected to the
Oh,
ancestors. But one thing you do know when you get to know me is that I love music and I love dancing. So I become
okay.
another person when music is
Okay.
playing.
We'll
So
have to make sure at some of the events we make sure we have music as well as thought. Thank you for sharing that. Very interesting. So I'd like to turn to a topic that I think is of great interest to us all, and that's mentorship. And
mhm.
whether how you feel about mentorship, whether you think young lawyers need to get a mentor day one. I mean, just what are your views on mentorship, and how are you infusing that into the Loyola community?
That's a great question. I think a short answer to that question is that mentorship is essential. You can't be something that you can't see. And what I've learned as I got older, that you don't know when you're younger, is you can't be something sometimes that no one suggests to you because you don't know anything. You don't know everything. There's so many wonderful experiences in life, and there's things that and we all will have them, but there are possibilities that we could have had if someone was
Mhm,
there to.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
my theory of what we need to provide, and my sense and commitment to the law school, is that we make mentorship possible from even from enrollment.
Oh,
So in my
okay.
prior school, and I know Loyola Law has worked hard on this and will continue to perfect it. In my prior school, one of the things we did is connect the newly admitted students to an alumni, and over time this mentorship takes work too because the
Right,
muscle has to be on both sides.
right,
um
right.
and so at Loyola Law, what we are, we crafting our orientation to make sure alumni and mentors are part of the orientation and
Okay.
that the student body is exposed to it. But I will say for you know this period of time and what you're hearing from law practice, and I know you've heard this, Greta, mentorship is pivotal as well, not just in law school, but outside of law school. We are hearing that during the pandemic, there was some isolation, even within the law firm themselves, so that junior lawyers may not have had, like the on-site guidance as much. So I think my call to all of us is to remember that there's someone else who may be a little shy about asking, there's someone else who needs to see the vulnerability of what it takes to get to the next stage, because growth is always painful.
Yes,
And
yes,
and if
yes.
they only see you succeeding, then or without the story of how you did it, they might not get it, and then they might think something is just wrong with them. So mentorship requires vulnerability on the part of the mentor, and then we are encouraging our students to not be as shy and to just take the lead when we set them up with people.
Well, then, speaking of mentors, you talk about some of your professors and your instructors in high school and college. Is there anyone, a hero, a shiro, or anyone that you
Mm.
might want to put on this archives project that you feel was, a mentor for you? I know you probably had many, but is there any one that you wanted to speak to?
Oh my goodness, I have so many. I have so many.
I know it's
Um,
hard to choose.
no,
You can have a couple if you like. I mean, whatever you like. I just, it's always good to say, well, my teacher in the sixth
well,
grade.
I'd love to. I'd love to just share that. Like at different points, you have different kind of guidance and angels, is what I call them. Because sometimes
Mhm.
you think about the hours that people pour into you, or the generosity, and it's just amazing. But I do think a lot about two people, and they're not here with me. Um,
Okay.
they passed on. So
Mhm.
one was Joseph Wagner, and he was at Colgate, um,
Okay.
and I never had him, but somewhere along my path, he had learned that I was a curious student, and I became his TA,
Okay.
teaching assistant, and he was just a giant of a mind, and he marked my life so much because I became his teacher's assistant. He's the one who taught me how to teach, who taught me to break down concept in a way that would excite students. But he also mentored me so thoroughly. Thanks to him, I trained and was able to obtain the Watson Fellowship, where I studied second generation Haitians in 4 countries. And
Wow.
I had just gotten to the United States. I was there by the time I was getting that fellowship. I was there less than 6 years.
In reading
So
your bio, I read that you were the valedictorian of that
I
university.
was, I was, but I couldn't have done it without.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. But Joe Wagner with so many other people, Professor Sandima, who's still with us, and I know you've heard me mention Professor Viniku, and from my high school, and Professor Laventure. I do thank you for this opportunity to name them. There are
Yes.
so many,
Yes.
and then this wonderful Black woman who was a colleague. Pamela Bridgewater. She was one of my colleagues. I think of her often. She died prematurely early,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
she was also a force that I think of, because one of the things that was unique at the time that I met her is that there was a time there wasn't that many Black women professors in legal
Mhm.
education, much
Mhm.
less deans. So when I
Mhm.
came in to the academic, in the first part of the millennium, there were very few of us, but she was so generous and open, and she was kind of like a testament to what it is to own yourself and to own who you
Mhm.
are. So I
Mhm.
think of her often. But I would say so many people, and definitely in law school, I had many, many mentors, including Martha Meno and so many
Okay.
others, Kelly Testy. So I can go on because I like to
But
lift up the
thank you,
mentors.
because I think that it's good to say I had mentors, but it's good to sometimes just name them. And this is a
Mhm.
historical document. And when lawyers look back, they're going to look and they're going to say, oh, that was a mentor for Dean Alexandre. And so thank you for that. I'm going
Thank
to
you.
to my last question now. And this is a big one. I feel like it's a big one because of all the work that you've been speaking about in terms of your work. I know the work that I try to do as an alum and being members of the various justice and equity committees with the Bar Association. So, in the last few years, young legal professionals and law students, as we talked about, have found themselves isolated in the midst of the pandemic. Just a lot of different social justice issues that have existed for hundreds of years and continue to exist now. So, your career reputation is that you've been an advocate for young lawyers, diverse lawyers. You've been on the cutting edge of a lot of these issues. And so, I want to ask you, what does inclusivity mean for you as the Dean of Loyola? And what do you advise lawyers and others in our profession that they should do to foster, and here's the key word, authenticity in diversity and inclusion. Can you
Wow.
speak to that?
Yeah,
It's a
that's a
big
big
question,
one.
but it's an important question for us.
So maybe I will, and I think it is. It's a quite essential question. So I love that you put authenticity there too. So I would probably start with two things. One, if you're the only one in the room, then be sure to bring somebody with you. Make sure the door is open. So I think for me, the definition of inclusivity is analyzing systems and looking at the whys and who should be there, who's not there, who's being spoken about, and then asking for the space to be open for more. It requires then that whoever is making the decision is committed to access, and that even if we don't have the funds to do it, that we are aware of the problem and we collaborate together to find a solution. But I also think there's another layer to that because our young people talk about this a lot. Even when the floodgates are open officially, right? So I teach anti-discrimination. So the laws technically, right, do not allow discrimination, but there are still hurdles in practice or in the way people are perceived. Simple things sometimes like people's names
Yeah.
can indicate something that prevent them from being even considered
Yes.
for a position. And
Yeah.
we have cases on that. Or manner of dressing,
Yeah.
that somehow you show up to an interview and then after you leave, people say, oh, they didn't seem to be professional. And that means that there's a stereotype about how people
Mhm.
should dress. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of cases on that.
Mhm.
And I've tried to like do my part to highlight how flawed that is and that how law should do that. But there are things that we all can do to make sure that the laws, when they change, also reflect the practices and that
Yeah.
we remove stereotypes. And to promote authenticity, inclusion means a second element of inclusions means that when access is open, at the same time that you try and open access, you allow people to be their full selves. You allow for the full person. You see them for who they are, not for a box, not for demographic, but also not for the way they ought to behave because they're a member of a group or because they say their particular orientation is this or that. So that is hard in society because we all been trained conditioned, but I think we can all be free. That's the ultimate
Mhm.
freedom to
Mhm.
focus on the full dignity of people. And I will just say that I've learned that if you do care about inclusion and you do care about opening access, that freedom to allow people to be themselves start with you. So
Yes.
talking to yourself about what am I holding on to
Right.
that maybe I inherited and how can I forgive myself and talk to myself, have
Mhm.
self-compassion and
Mhm.
love for myself enough that I
Mhm.
don't let external regulation tell me where I should be, but I move for my intrinsic worth. And
Right.
then naturally you extend that to others.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Amazing. This has been really amazing. Well, those are kind of the end of my formal questions. I want to give you an opportunity now to just, if you have any closing remarks for the Chicago Bar Association community that you would like to share, I wanted to give you a few minutes, topic of your choice, before we close out today. This has been really fun.
Yeah, no, you're easy to talk to. So thank you. I just
Trying
want
to
to
keep it conversational.
very easy. You make it look just seamless. So I'll just close by telling everyone, the Chicago Bar Association, everyone in Chicago, how honored I am to be here. You know, the reputation of the city precedes itself, um, and the reputation, particularly of being for workers, of being for people who do not have, of being a city of faith. And of having dealt with hard issues and hard questions and of continuing to work on it. So for me, the message I have is that I know I'm new to the city and I have a lot to learn. I am an open door for collaboration. I thrive on engagement, and we at the law school want to be of service to Chicago. We want to continue to ask ourselves what more can we do, how more can we serve, and we know to do that we have to collaborate with partners who are also doing this work so that our impact can even be greater than what it is now. So my door is always open, and I look forward to getting to know this thriving city, and it's just wonderful to be here.
Well, thank you, Dean Alexandre, and I'm going to say Michelle. Thank you. This has been, I feel like, just a really honest and open conversation. I feel like we have gotten to know you better, and just want to say thank you for sharing your views on leadership, on social justice, on your goals for Loyola's School of Law. I've learned quite a bit today, as I said. It's not every day I get to talk to a Harvard law professor. So thank you. Thank you. I learned a lot. And I am hoping that we can, at some point in the future, have you at the Chicago Bar Association. But for today, I want to say thank you and best of luck to you in your current and continuing role as Dean of Loyola Law. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I would love that. Thank you so much. Have a
Okay.
wonderful day and weekend, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.